People are misunderstanding and misconstruing this law. We can't say that enough, obviously. The fact is, it doesn't do that. It doesn't discriminate, and anyone on either side of this issue who suggests otherwise is just plain flat wrong.
The radicalism of the right wing has taken over, and I think in this case that's what happened. They need to do a reversal, a 180 on this, and get us towards the path of healing the reputation of the state of Indiana.
Talking about the religious...
A battle in Indiana, Republicans and Democrats squaring off today over a controversial new law that some say allows for discrimination. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York. Now, Republicans say that they want to clarify the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Democrats, they're demanding it be repealed. ABC's Karen Travers has the latest.
Basketball crazy Indiana's gearing up for this weekend's Final Four, but a political controversy is threatening to overshadow the games. Indiana politicians are scrambling to deal with the fallout from a new law meant to prevent the government from forcing organizations to provide services that run against their religious beliefs. 19 other states have similar laws, but critics say the Indiana law gives businesses the green light to discriminate against gays and lesbians on religious grounds.
This is not about discrimination. This is about protecting the religious liberty of every Hoosier, of every faith.
Indiana Governor Mike Pence insisted there would be no changes to the law. But this morning, Republican leaders there said they're already working on a fix, adding new language to the controversial legislation.
We feel the need to step up to the plate today and get this clarified and calm the seas here.
Some Indiana businesses aren't waiting around, making it clear to their customers they don't agree with the law. This tiny but powerful stickers popping up in storefronts across the state capitol.
That's important to me as a consumer, for sure, to see that businesses don't discriminate against anybody for any reason.
But the backlash is spreading beyond Indiana. Apple CEO Tim Cook called the law dangerous, and the internet service site Angie's List announced it's canceling a $40 million expansion project in Indiana. Indiana Democrats said today the only way to fix this controversial law is to repeal it, but that's unlikely to happen. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
All right, Karen, thank you. I want to bring in our political director, Rick Klein, who's in Washington, D.C., and watching this all play out. Rick, we just heard there Karen's report there that Indiana Democrats want to repeal the law. Republicans say they can make an amendment to this law that it doesn't discriminate. Any chance you're going to get cooperation from both these parties?
No, but there is a chance that there'll be changes. Governor Pence on This Week with George Stephanopoulos yesterday said he wouldn't countenance any changes to the law. He would look at something that would maybe clarify it. We heard a much different thing today from Republican leaders. They are now suddenly open to changes in the law. They're talking about acting this week. The Final Four is on Saturday. They realize this is an urgent issue. They have to act quickly. So those changes could be critical in defining the contours of it, but I would not look for a lot of bipartisan compromise here. Democrats feel like they have a powerful issue, and Republicans have a base that feels strongly about this as well, that this is about not being anti-gay, but protecting religious liberty.
So Indiana Republicans say this law, or at least a similar law, is on the books in 30 other states, that there was never this big of an outcry, that there was never this big of an attention being put to this. So what makes Indiana's law any different?
Yeah, they're right, but they're also wrong. And let me explain. First of all, the timing, the context here. This has happened in the wake of a wave of gay marriage decisions and rulings and moves by legislatures. And in fact, this happened in Indiana right after an attempt to amend the state constitution to ban gay marriage failed. So the clear political context is what it is. The Arizona Republican governor vetoed a similar bill last year because of the way that times have changed and the context changed. The other big difference between this and other states, including, say, neighboring Illinois, where State Senator Barack Obama supported a similar bill about 20 years ago, is that in other states, including Illinois, there is a protected class that includes LGBT individuals that says that it's against state law to discriminate specifically against them. Now, there's lots of protections that exist like that for race, for gender, but not for LGBT, not for gays and lesbians in Indiana, and Governor Pence ruling that out yesterday as well. The other key difference here is a kind of a small technical change that makes a big difference, is that this law defines a person who can make this decision as also corporations. That has big meaning in the wake of the Hobby Lobby decision, which had to do with whether employers that object on a philosophical or religious basis to providing contraceptive coverage would still have to do it. That's what prompted a lot of this concern. So the context and the law are different here, and the governor pressed repeatedly in this interview yesterday with our colleague George Stephanopoulos, would not say whether discrimination against LGBT individuals would be legal in Indiana under this law.
Has Governor Pence made any kind of response or reaction from today then? I mean, is he backing off either by saying something or by potentially putting any other kind of legislation out there?
He's saying he's waiting for the legislators, and the legislators' response this morning was the next volley in this. So he hasn't said anything. But what's striking in this is these were Republican leaders in the State House who were saying what Governor Pence said yesterday was incomplete and also inaccurate. They say the answer should have been no, you can't discriminate. It's not about just whether you're a good person or not, which is essentially what Governor Pence said. You cannot discriminate under law, and that's what they intend to make clear by modifying, by adjusting, by changing the law in the ways that they view as appropriate this week.
So We just heard a little bit earlier on that Apple CEO Tim Cook made a very strong stance against this bill, writing in an op-ed some of this right here. The days of segregation and discrimination marked by whites-only signs on shop doors, water fountains, and restrooms must remain deep in our past. We must never return to any semblance of that time. America must be a land of opportunity for everyone. It got a lot of attention when you have a leader of one of the world's biggest companies making a powerful statement like that. The question is, are politicians going to listen to this? What kind of influence is he going to have?
It's in some ways it's an interesting move from the Apple CEO. He is openly gay. He came out recently after taking over as CEO. And often corporations try to stay out of this and say we're not going to take any kind of a stand. And we know people of all political persuasions are going to buy our product. This is a different move, and it's coming from, as you say, one of the world's most valuable, if not the most valuable corporation. It's worth more than the state of Indiana, just for starters. And so I do think that, plus the attention that the sports world has put on Indiana, it has made it into a social media and kind of a national rallying point. It's one of these issues that it's hard to have imagined a generation ago getting the same kind of press attention and public attention on one individual state that's now resulting in some concrete, tangible changes.
So Tim Cook, it just happens to be from Arkansas, a state where politicians there have passed a similar bill, but the governor has yet to sign it. And with this kind of response, then, is Governor Hutchinson, I mean, they're still waiting for any kind of changes to this law? What's that prospect?
I'd be surprised if any governor moves on this legislation as long as the issue is so hot in Indiana. They'd want to make sure they at least track what's going on in that state. I think this is going to change some of the national momentum we've seen around this law, similar ones like it, another one in North Carolina. A whole range of states have them implemented. It has been part of a conservative push, again, in reaction to what they've seen out of the Supreme Court, a reaction to what they've seen with gay marriage moving into more and more states around the country. But I think this backlash would have any politician waking up and taking a lot of notice and hesitating before fixing a signature.
So, Rick, what's really cranking up the spotlight on this is obviously the Final Four coming into Indiana at the end of the week. They're the head of the the head of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, just made a statement about that because there's been a lot of talk about what, in fact, the NCAA, what that organization would do given on this. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, we'd expressed our displeasure with it, and frankly, I was really surprised that it passed and that it was signed into law, and especially as quickly as it occurred. There had been an anti-gay marriage law that was being debated last year. We'd opposed that and made sure that everyone again understood that that was completely inconsistent with the values of the NCAA, and so I thought that everybody thought that this would take a lot more deliberation than it occurred. So we were all surprised and disappointed that this moved as rapidly as it did through the legislature.
Rick, what do you think? Is this going to change the atmosphere coming into this weekend?
It is going to be a highly charged atmosphere going into the weekend. I talked to some activists who are planning on bringing as much attention as they can. They'll have a press conference on Saturday as the National International Spotlight begins. They're talking about having Jason Collins, the openly gay NBA player, Greg Louganis, the former swimmer who's openly gay, or diver rather, and they're going to try to focus this moment of attention in Indiana on the fact that this is going on. They are jumping on this to a degree that we haven't seen happen with other events. It's a fortuitous set of timing from the advocates' perspective. They want to shine as harsh a spotlight as possible on what's happening there and use this. And the fact, again, we talk about organizations that don't like to go out front. The NCAA, I think, is one of them. Mark Emmert, a strong paper statement, print statement last week. This interview today, making clear the NCAA will only be involved in places that are consistent with the values that the universities hold dear. That's a pretty major statement. It's not just this tournament. The women's Final Four is scheduled to be in Indianapolis about a year from now, and the NCAA itself happens to be headquartered in Indianapolis. So they have employees who are potentially very directly impacted by this. All
right, our political director, Rick Klein, in Washington, D.C. Rick, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep up with the story in real time. Downloading the ABC News app and starting the story for updates on the go. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York.